What's up everyone, my name's Ellis and I'm a producer, musician and a songwriter originally from Birmingham. I'm now living in London. ADE asked if I wanted to share some of my knowledge about how I work with TOPLINERS and also how I've been working remotely in these uncertain times. Firstly, I thought I'd speak a little bit about my EP that I released recently through Monstercat with some incredibly talented artists. The majority of these songs were born from studio sessions, and I used to kind of stick around in my bedroom making beats and then sending them off through like Instagram or Facebook to different writers and then receive stuff back, which is fine. But for me personally, I feel like you sometimes lose that personal, authentic feeling that you might get in a certain record if you write it directly with someone else. Saying that, the first single that was released from the EP was Don't Say You're Sorry, which was done exactly that way. Because Maribel is based in Australia, I just made a beat on my laptop at home, and I remember just thinking, you know, she would be perfect on this record. So my manager sent it to her manager, and within a few days she'd already sent back something that was completely solid and is pretty much what's on the final record. We then exchanged probably maximum 15 text messages back and forth, struggling with the time zones of course, but you get used to that. And then yeah, just adding in little things, changing little things, and then the song was finished. And then it was down to me really to kind of finish it off, arrange everything properly, mix it, get it off for mastering. That is just the way you kind of have to work when you're doing it over text message. When I receive a vocal online like this, I usually end up changing quite a bit of the instrumental that was originally sent over, and that's just because you're not sat directly with the artist liaising on how you can get the vocal to sound specifically right over what you've written. So it usually is down to me to kind of, you know, take away chords, EQ things properly, or even just completely flip the arrangement on his head. But that's just kind of the price you have to pay in that respect. It's not really a price, it's just a way of working. With this specific record, I did spend quite a lot of time trying to get everything really sounding right together. So like, as I said, there was a few kind of messages exchanged with changing bits, but I just spent a lot of time rearranging things, changing instruments and whatnot, which might seem like a bit of an unnecessary challenge, but some of my favourite songs that I've released have been made this way. For example, One More Time with Jex, Start Over with Laura Brem, and Like with Jaja. Secondly, there's records like Unfold, Brand New Phone and Speak Francais, which were all pretty much born in intimate writing sessions that were over and done with in about 2 to 3 hours. This for me is my personal favourite way of working with TOPLINERS, writers, vocalists, just because you really can get to know people and sit down with them and just make some magic, and you really can just direct each other on these different crazy paths that you didn't think you were going to go down yourself when you were just sat by yourself in a studio. Noep was an interesting one for me. We got it put in a room together in a writing session in Estonia, and he has this really unique kind of sounding voice, which at the time I didn't actually think would complement the sort of style of music I was making as much as it did, but it did. I remember him coming in to the studio and he was kind of like, let's make a beat in a Young Franco, like hip hop, rap, funk type vibe. I was listening to a lot of that stuff at the time too, so I was like, totally, let's do it. I hadn't actually really made much sort of stuff in that style at the time, so it was very refreshing, and the track just came alive in about 2 hours and we had pretty much the whole thing. And working wise in this kind of scenario, I usually try to put down the basics first. For example, I put down some very simple like major 7th chords just in MIDI. I was just playing about, and then Noep starts singing the hook straight away and we're like, wicked. And we actually just laid that down and started working backwards, and then we found like a verse kind of structure, then the chorus, and then we were like, do we have a drop? I don't know, but the drop came later on down the line when I was nerding out in the studio. And I quickly laid down some sounds that just create the vibe in this kind of scenario. For example, a little snap to keep the rhythm going, maybe a little tambourine, a little bass line to just signify a difference in sections, some transitional elements which really help the writer or the singer to kind of get a feel of where the song's going and where the structure and the different sections are, and then some drums to signify some sort of chorus or drop. All of these sounds are very, very rough. They'll just be something that I have kind of laying around in a folder that I've collected samples from just for years, where I know exactly where to go and find things. This is a really good habit to kind of get yourself into, so that you can really quickly work in sessions because you know where everything is. You don't want to spend hours and hours and hours in a session finding the perfect kick and the perfect clap to go with that kick, and then you get to 5:30 and you're like, I've got an hour left to write an entire song. You do that later on when you're nerding out in the studio. You want to get the vibe down first, and that's like the musicality, the ideas, and the theme of the song. Another thing I like to do in these sessions is get the vocalist to already start stacking the vocals, whether that's like doubles, the low octave, the high octave, and even harmonies, just so that we can really get a feel for the chorus and the pre-chorus and the verse, because the verse is usually very thin and just kind of one layer of vocal, and then the chorus opens up. And when you can hear that straight away in the session, you instantly get the vibe of whether this chorus or the hook is going to work or not. In the session for Brand New Phone with Pasha literally started singing or like rapping this hook over a drum beat and just the bass line.
Side on the corner feeling brand new dope. Got a brand new phone. Side on the corner feeling brand new dope. Trying to find that gold.
And we instantly knew that that vibe was just going to be perfect. The only thing is that his rap that he'd laid down for the verse was sounding too similar to the chorus. So in that instance, what we did is we started out with the doubles, and then I got Pasha to sing the octave higher, and then finally, even to top it off, a whisper vocal layer, which is quite rare, but in this instance, it worked perfectly. Right now, I'm doing a lot of online sessions to kind of keep my creativity flowing. I'm doing Zoom sessions specifically with some really, really great writers, actually. I was pretty skeptical about doing these at first, but now I'm really trying to find a groove for it, and it's just a really cool little way of working with people. It's weird, but I totally recommend doing it. And to kind of keep things flowing smoothly and not kind of like you're on a bumpy road in the session, I use this program called Audio Movers Listen To. And what this does is it creates a real-time streaming link from your DAW directly to the writer or the singer's computer, so that you don't have any weird latency going on. This is not a paid sponsorship thing at all. I literally just love using this service, and it's the only thing out there that really does this perfectly in these weird COVID times. It can be a bit fiddly with, you know, muting microphones on either end of the session and stuff, but once you find the groove, it's fine. A good thing about the online sessions as well is it also gives you a little bit of time to work on your bits individually. So if I really need to like kind of work on this little section of the record, I can just mute myself, and the other writer can work on the second verse lyrics, for example, while I'm just trying to nail that subject without annoying each other, as you may do if you're sat in a session together. I'm also still working online with some producers on some really, really sick collabs that I'm super excited about. Working on producer collabs can be extremely difficult, in my opinion. I'm such a perfectionist as a producer, and when another producer is also a perfectionist, you'll find that you can clash on certain little things. For example, the choice of a kick sample or the choice of a snare sample, something so minor that only you and the producer are really going to be able to tell the difference from. I'm lucky enough right now to be working with some insane producers in the scene and some of my favorite producers of all time, and we're all just really vibing with the ideas that we're laying down, and that's how it should be, and it feels great. The first idea that someone puts forward in a producer collab is always like the longest and hardest bit, in my opinion, because you've both got to find that idea. Someone's got to pitch this idea first, And then it's like, does this fit both artists like well? Are these styles like aligning with each other? Is it going to work for their projects and for my project or for whoever else's project? And it can be difficult, but once you find that one record or that one tiny idea, it seems to just flow smoothly from there. And I think my advice for starting these producer collabs is, if you want to reach out to someone and you really want to collab with someone, is getting a small idea first. Don't send someone a finished track because they can't add to it, you know? Also, that same goes for giving someone something that's super rough and they're like, for example, if I sent someone some chords, they're going to think, okay, these chords are cool, but that doesn't sound like Ellis, so why would I work on this, you know? It's a hit and miss thing, and you've just really got to find that perfect balance between something that sounds really cool and like you to something that other person's also going to work on. Unfortunately for me, and probably a lot of other Logic users, is that we always end up having to stem stuff out. Like, I don't think I've done one collab in my entire producing career so far where I've shared a project with a producer. It's always me bouncing stems out, then bouncing stems out. It's a long process, but it's worth it. Lots of stemming, lots of bouncing, lots of going back, changing a mix, stemming again, and then bouncing again, and blah 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 blah. It's a longer, more frustrating process. But in the end, you end up with this really weird amalgamation of just random sounds from this end and this end that have just gone through all of these hoops and loops and holes, and then you get to this finish line, which is the collab, and that's when it sounds really cool. I hope this little talk has been really useful for some of you guys and has given you guys some insight into how working with people can be beneficial and how you can actually work with people in these weird times, because it might feel like you can't, but now is one of the best times to do it as well, because a lot of these bigger artists and other people that would usually be busier are now at home producing, singing, songwriting. So get out there, go and do it, and good luck making music.